All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us once again on Did You Know, the ESCO HVAC Podcast. So we're spending some time again with Rob Larson. Rob, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. We just had an episode not too long ago that we did at the HVAC Excellence National HVACR Education Conference, but there's so many other topics that we can talk about. I'm actually broadcasting today from Skills USA competition down here in Atlanta, Georgia. And so we're working with technicians to understand new technologies and ways that we can be more efficient at the work that we do. One of the things that gets overlooked in our industry way too often is the proper commissioning of systems. And it's interesting that when you work on the water side and you're in the boiler side, there's commissioning requirements for every installation. But in HVAC, we're not really there yet, but we can be and we should be. So Rob, let's talk a little bit about like your training programs and talk about commissioning and some proper practices.
Okay, so the most, like you said, commissioning is the top thing that manufacturers are pounding us for when it comes to training.
Yeah.
Most manufacturers are putting in their literature at the end of the book. It's literally 2 pages, Clint. 2 pages, easy to fill out. Most of the information is just the customer's information and a model and serial number, right? So that's kind of what they're looking for you to record some measurements. So the passion I have with commissioning, it gets pretty deep. I don't know how, but whenever I talk about customer, and I do most of what I do is tech support for an HVAC distributor, General Plumbing Supply. So when a customer comes in and he purchases a furnace coil condenser from us, I have an opportunity to see this equipment go out our door, and when I see that equipment leave, it's brand new equipment. It's all in a box, pretty much not bothering anybody, just sitting there waiting to be brought to life, right, per se. So it goes out the door, these guys install it, and once they're done, they usually turn it on and they run away and they don't do the proper commissioning. Then I'll get the call a week later and they'll tell me all about how it worked great when they started it up. And how great was it running? Like, give me some measurements so I can have a relationship to what you started with and where we are today. Because today the compressor's not running. Okay.
But the airflow was good and the refrigerant pressures were good and the voltage was good. It should be a good running system.
Yeah, pretty much.
Get that all the time, don't we?
So, enough of that happens where you just get I got to come up with a different way because they're not listening, Clint. They don't listen. I say, hey, fill out the commissioning sheet. And no matter how many times I've said that and explained to them how important it is, there's no connection there. So I think I came up with a connection, and I probably started as myself being a parent of 3 children. I started thinking about how do I really get emotionally attached to these guys? How do I bring them in to make them feel more emotional about what they do? Because what they do is so important. So I came up with, on the fly, I was in a dealer meeting with all the owners of companies, and they said, hey, we're going to give you 15 minutes to talk to these dealers. I said, well, what am I going to talk about for 15 minutes that are going to have a long-lasting impact on these owners of HVAC companies? So I started off by asking them, how many guys are parents? And, everybody's raising their hand. I raised my hand. I said, all right, let me ask you a question. Your wife's delivering your child. The doctor delivers the baby, puts the baby on the table, doesn't check anything, has no checklist, doesn't check temperature, see it's breathing, the lungs capacity, the blood pressure, temperature, whatever. Doesn't, and tells you as a parent, hey, this, they can survive 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years. We don't know. We just delivered your baby. We're going to leave now. So I'm like, that caught their attention. And they're like, wait a minute, why would I go to a doctor that does that? Well, you want it. So when you're doing this, when you're taking my furnace coil condenser out of my inventory and you're connecting electricity to it, you're connecting flue pipe, refrigeration, all right? Thermostat controls, you're doing all this stuff. When you turn that on, you're bringing mechanical life into the world. Right? That's the way I feel about it.
That's a really cool perspective.
So you're bringing mechanical life into the world. Take pride, take the measurements. They're easy. Like you said, take static pressure. It's not hard. The more you do it, the faster you're going to be at doing it. And the tools are out there. They make it easy for you to take all the measurements, and they actually do the homework for you. It doesn't matter if you know when you first start out doing commissioning, don't get hung up on what the measurements mean. You'll figure that part out. What I need you to understand is where to take the measurements. And when you learn where to take the measurements and fill out the form, and you start reading the forms, after the fourth or fifth job you've commissioned, you're going to see a pattern. You're going to say, wait a minute, these numbers look good. These numbers look off. They're not the same as the last guys. They kind of, go hand in hand. So, these are the things we're asking you to do, and there's a reason for it, right? So that's how I got their attention in 15 minutes to explain to them how important it is. Because again, you do comparisons. Let's take a newborn. We want to make sure that, when you look at a furnace, static pressure you can relate to a newborn's ability to breathe air in and out. Okay. When we talk about temperatures, what's my heat rise? What's my temperature? What's my TD across the coil? Well, that's the temperature of a newborn baby. I mean, it's got to be within a certain range. And if it's not going to survive long. So there's a relationship between a newborn and commissioning equipment. And we use those examples. Blood pressure. When they check blood pressure on a newborn, that's our refrigerant pressure. We got to check it, right? Subcooling, superheat. So that's kind of where I get their attention. And it seems, for the most part, when I use that little bit of a comparison with mechanical birth for human birth, people could relate and they understand, hey, wait a minute. I can't just run away. I can't put my hand at a register and say, yeah, it's hot air or it's cold air. It's going to be fine. If you don't do a temperature rise, that furnace could be tripping off on high temperature, for years before they pick up and, realize it's not working properly or the limit doesn't reset anymore. And now you're broken down. So that's the part that I try to bring guys in. And then we talk about the different tools that are available to do all this stuff. And there's, like I said, there's a lot of companies that offer a lot of different tools. So
Yeah, because that box, excuse me, that box is not ready to run right out of the box, right?
No.
It may come with some factory presets, and it was probably tested at the manufacturer under a certain condition, but that is in ideal conditions. We don't have that ever in the residential and like commercial industry, particularly. So once we set that equipment into place, it is our responsibility to make sure that that thing is finely tuned so that it can perform as rated and it will last as designed. And you're right, there's so many tools that makes that job so easy and efficient. Very different than 15, 20 years ago when everything was done manually and we weren't as precise with our tuning as we are today. I just did a two-stage gas furnace with two-stage A2L heat pump installation a couple weeks ago, and I was using the field piece kit. And I have to say, I mean, so many props to field piece. I know there's a lot of software out there like Measure Quick and a variety of different softwares, but with my field piece, I was able to connect, all of my job links. So I was able to, read all my refrigerant pressures, read my superheat, my subcooling. I was able to use my manometers to be able to look at airflow, and I was able to measure temperature rise, and I was able to take the voltage and amperage of the outdoor unit and put in my CFM. And I'm actually calculating capacity for me as I'm installing this. And otherwise, there's no way to know, like, how is this system performing? How many BTUs am I actually transferring when this thing is running? And you're right. Once you do an appropriate commissioning, you've got the data in front of you and you're going to recognize, even if you're not 100% trained and comfortable in your commissioning, the data is going to start showing you where things are off. So it's crucial that we understand what temperatures, what measurements are we actually looking for, and how do we use the tools for doing that? And so I'm sure in your classes, you're diving into not just the fundamentals of commissioning, but the practices. Can you walk us through some of our best practices?
So just to add to what you were saying about equipment not being plug in and play, I don't even know what that means anymore. Plug in and play. So there is some, investment in commissioning that people have to understand. So one of the things in our training that we do here is we've gotten away from just teaching people static pressure, right? You have a static pressure class and you have a refrigerant class, and we've kind of gotten away from that. So all our classes are based on startup sheets, because it's like when I was in high school, grammar school, learning algebra. It's like, when do I need that? And it doesn't make sense to me. So
yeah, show me where it applies.
Show me where it applies, and I think I'll use it. So we've gone into that mentality here at our training facility to say to guys, okay, you know what? We're going to teach you static pressure, but we're going to show you where it goes in the startup sheet. Okay. And like I said, we start just like, you becoming a pilot. You want to learn how to fly. Well, fly manually before you use controls. So we teach the guys how to get those measurements as simple as possible, whatever tools that we could find to measure static pressure or temperature. And then as we build on each portion of what the commissioning sheet is requiring, we put it all together at the end of the class. We say, okay, you learned static pressure, you learned subcooling, superheat, temperature rise. We're going to put this all together, pressures. We're going to put it together on this sheet. We're going to fill it out. And you know what? Maybe the first time you do this, it would take you an hour, maybe an hour and a half. But I promised all the students, if they just use it on every job, they'll get it done in 15, 20 minutes, hands down. 15, 20 minutes, tops 30 minutes, and they'll be done. And they will know more about that system than all the other techs that have been on that job, whether it's a new install or a service call. So that's what we try to apply to them. And it's not just for installs either. I know we talk about commissioning. We're actually teaching the service guys to use this technique to say, look, you're going there looking for a problem. Why don't we first start with eliminating what's not the problem, right? So think about it. We're looking for a problem. That's that needle in the haystack. Why don't we eliminate what's not? Well, we know it's not this piece of hay because it's not a needle, and we'll eventually trip over the problem. But if you use the commissioning for also service and just take that 15, 20 minutes to fill out your service report with the same information we're asking you to do commissioning, you're going to find a problem. Or you'll find a problem that maybe the guys that did the install didn't pick up on commissioning. So that's kind of where we try to address our training.
Well, you bring up such a good point when you're using that reference to like the health care side of things, whether it's a baby, whether it's us going to a doctor. Could you imagine going to a new doctor, right? Change doctors, going to a new general practice doctor, and that doctor brings you in for that first visit and says, well, I'm assuming that every doctor that you went to before did everything right. So we're just going to assume everything's okay. And we're going to do just a very general check of how you're doing, and maybe we'll do some cleaning and some basics. But I'm pretty sure that every other doctor before you did everything right and found everything and giving you all the right prescriptions. It's not really practical, right? When we think about it, we want to start with a baseline, understand everything that has been done in the past, so that we can look at what things could potentially need to be done going forward. So, it's hard to imagine installing a brand new system and not doing a commissioning on it, and then expecting the service technicians that come later to assume that everything was done properly. As a service technician, the very first thing that we should do, exactly like you're saying, see if things were done right, because the things that were done wrong are going to show themselves quickly.
Yeah. Listen, we also get involved in tech support. I call it tech therapy support.
Yes.
Which I just use, just to take the edge off the guys. I mean, I was I was out in the field for a long time. So I know what these guys, when they call me, I know what they're up against. They don't call for just calling and being lazy. They call because they're stuck. And when they're stuck, I try to be available to kind of walk them through some of the things in my experience of being in the field. So when they're telling me they're in the attic, I get it. When they're in the basement with, a foot of water, I get it. So what we're trying to do is have the guys bring it down a notch and just refocus themselves, right? So it comes, a little bit of therapy comes through tech support, in my opinion. If you're,
It definitely
you know,
does.
yeah, and it works because,
Yeah.
and you know what? The biggest thing is, majority of the calls I get, the guys really know, they know what they're doing. They understand the system. They wind up getting tunnel vision a little bit, right? I don't know why. Sometimes we become too creative thinking about what the problem could be. And I try to explain, guys, stop. You're going down the wrong path. You're focusing on the wrong thing. Let's open up a little bit. And sometimes I'll jokingly ask them if they have a shovel with them. And they're like, what do you mean, do I have a shovel with me? Yeah, because you're digging a lot of rabbit holes. I need you to throw the shovel away.
Yeah.
And that kind of lightens up. You guys, you're just joking around, whatever. But no, once I get them to where it's like, okay, let's start from the beginning, and it could be as simple as starting at the voltage, because everybody assumes because they see a light on, we have voltage, but we don't know how much. So it could be as simple as just starting at that point. And the more you keep looking at a service call and being able to start from A, B, C, D and create your own checklist or your own sequence of operation, right? That's what I call it, because that's what
exactly what
everybody does. A furnace has a sequence of operation. If you worked for my company at one time, you learned the sequence of operation of a furnace your first week working there, and you memorized it. You had no idea what you were memorizing, but you knew that if R&W made, you were going to get induced draft motors. So we instilled that simple furnace sequence of operation in all our guys, because if they were able to memorize that, which they all did after a week or so, they would learn, okay, so what else has a sequence of operation? So now everything else follows. I mean, just you and I getting up in the morning, we have our own sequence of operation to getting out of bed every day. I get out of bed the same side. I do my routine. And, if I wrote it down every day for 30 days, it'd be the same thing. So instead, I memorized it without even thinking about it. That's what we need our techs to do. That's what we need our service guys to do, our installers to do, is just get in the habit of going through sequence of operation and everything you work on. Because when you do something else has to happen. What happens next? If you don't know what is supposed to happen next, how are you going to troubleshoot it? It becomes very difficult. So we continuously teach people the sequence of operation of everything we could possibly get. And that's why, if you'll notice in the manuals that are produced now, they do give you a sequence of operations. Some of the literature will tell you, hey, this is what's supposed to happen. So just take the time to read it. And that's kind of where we're at with it. So.
Yeah, that's the beauty of a commissioning report. It is a sequence of operation for that machine. And when we follow it and we make sure that every step along the way is doing what it's supposed to do within the correct range, when we're done, we have an operating piece of machinery, so that if we do have any problems, we simply go back to the sequence of operation again. And without that, we're, like you said, we're digging a bunch of rabbit holes for no reasons.
Yeah, but it's like I said, these guys for the most part know the field.
Sometimes they just need a little assistance and mental therapy.
therapy.
Rob, so great to have you with us again. Where can we learn more about general plumbing and supply and training that's offered?
Well, we have a website, generalplumbingsupply.net, and there's a trade section that talks about training. We do all that. Again, we are a dealer-based distributor that sells Luxair equipment. We do factory training. We do get the factory to come in, or we'll fly you out to Oklahoma or Norman, Oklahoma, and get you all trained up through the factory if you're
the Ducted Systems Academy.
Yep. Or listen, there's a lot of stuff. You guys provide a ton of stuff online, and we certainly support your program and ASCO's efforts into getting information out there for these younger techs and even the older techs like myself that listen, I'm good at adapting to new stuff, but I'll tell you, these guys have it tough out there. There's so much technical stuff out there. You're trying to program thermostats now and using Wi-Fi. You can't get into a blower motor without a phone. It's like, what are we doing? It's nice to be simple, to have things simple at one point when it was, but these guys are it's a different world than we started in. And all we could do is continue to support them. And I think that's what we do. And, we're here for them. So.
Absolutely. That's the name of the game, is helping everyone understand that we are here for you. So I encourage you all to learn more about general plumbing supply and stay tuned. We'll keep giving you all that moral support that you need to get through that sequence of operation properly. Rob, thanks a lot for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me. See you next time.